Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this latest edition of the Three Wise Men. We have Shannon and Sharan joining us today. Arvind decided to abandon us considering today is a Manchester special that we're doing, so he conveniently left us out. But yeah, he's off to India, so Sharon was kind enough to join us. It's been a busy week in the Premier League, guys. I mean, there have been matches almost every day. I mean, for after a long time, we'll enter the last week of the season with the champions decided, the relegated teams decided, and I mean, tomorrow possibly top four decided. So, um, Shannon, any quick words on Chelsea being crowned Premier League champions?
Well, they deserve to be champions. Just like Leicester last season, no one really gave them a fight. And definitely, it's just a pattern we're seeing. You can't call it a pattern, it's just 2 years sample, but it just seems like the team that has the least number of midweek games goes on to be champions at the end of the season. But credit to them, Conte has been wonderful. They made some shrewd signings, and yeah, there was no one to challenge them.
Um, yeah, I mean, coming into the season, I think Guardiola and Mourinho were expected to be the kingpins of the Premier League with the Manchester club, with Manchester clubs being potentially being the biggest threat. Sharon, over the last, I mean, especially after Sir Alex left, the Manchester clubs kind of died away. I mean, City won the league, but it wasn't that convincing. Recently Spurs and Chelsea and Leicester have been doing good. W- I mean, it's a very broad question to start with, but what do you think has gone wrong, or what do you think the Manchester clubs have not done right and the others have?
Um, you're absolutely right. Yeah, the rivalry sort of looks like it's died down a bit this season. Of course, there was a lot of expectation from United and City with Mourinho and Guardiola, but I think, as you mentioned, in the post Sir Alex Ferguson era, it's been more of a transitional period for United, trying to find their feet, trying to get the right squad, trying to get the right balance, and it's it's sort of been a dead rubber against City as well in some cases. And initially, we were just unfortunately dominated pretty much. But I see that now. Now at least looks like with the right signings, it looks like it's on its way up. With the rivalries coming back, it looks like it'll be big games again next season, hopefully. But so far, I think it's just because of the transitional period that we've had that it's not really lived up to expectations, and possibly the performance hasn't been as good as we would expect, and the games haven't been as lively or as entertaining as we would expect.
All right, let's start with City here. So, Sharon, again, I'll start with you. I mean, City were kind of hounding Guardiola for the past 2, 3 years, wanting him to get him, earlier than they managed to get him. Uh, they wanted to replicate his style at Barcelona. He's come in. I mean, City were, according to me, the favorites, and for most people, in fact, favorites to win the title this year, even ahead of United. That's how much was expected of the City team and Guardiola himself. Do you think Do you think it's just a case of Guardiola's system not working in the Premier League, or did his squad fail him?
I think it's too soon to say either, in the sense that he came into the league expecting something from the league, but he's tried a number of things. Some worked, some didn't. Uh, in terms of personnel, defensively, I think they've been extremely poor. It's probably a question of recruitment. Clearly, with Claudio Bravo, they're definitely not a good choice for a goalkeeper. I mean, I understand Guardiola expects certain things out of his defenders and goalkeepers trying to play out from the back, but I think it's taken. He's learned the hard way what English football is like, and next season will definitely be different for him. So
Right.
yeah, I think yeah, it's too soon to say that he can't make it in the Premier League, or it's his squad that's let him down. He's of course going to take a couple of seasons to build a squad as well, and I'm sure next season he'll adapt better to the Premier League as well.
Shannon, do you want to add to that? Do you think the league is just too physical for the way he wants to play?
Uh, I wouldn't say so, because when he won Champions Leagues, right, he played English opposition and he beat them comfortably, including hammering United. Uh, but I think it was more about personnel. Like, he expected John Stones to be his Gerard Piqué, and he expected Otamendi to be his Carl Puyol, and that didn't happen. And he might have the attacking personnel, but as you mentioned in like almost all our previous podcasts, you weren't happy with City's defense, and I don't think Guardiola is either. So I think it was more about the personnel that he had at Barcelona and Bayern Munich. He had world-class players in all positions that could adapt to his instructions and relay what his visions were on the field, and he does not have that sort of players at City. And you can't. You could see some games, how fluid they are, the movement, and the transition from defense to attack, but he doesn't have the defending personnel to build what he wants to build there. And it starts from the goalkeeper. As Sharan said, Claudio Bravo has been nothing short of shambolic. Joe Hart would have made some more saves that he missed. So it's everything that contributed towards it, and it's a big summer for him and Mourinho as well. Let's see whom they get and how his team looks like.
Before we go and discuss the team in detail, I was listening to the Sunday supplement yesterday, and Sharon, there was a great discussion on how the Premier League, or the managers who are more pragmatic, the managers who try and adapt to the team that they have, to the English football mentality in general, are more successful rather than the managers who come in with a set idea. So, for instance, Conte, he adapted to, even with, a shattered dressing room, a mess that Mourinho left behind. He came and adapted to the players, the squad that he had, used his system, and he gave them time initially. They didn't work with that four at the back. He used his system, but with that same set of players. Whereas Guardiola came in with a set ideology that this is what I want to do. And first day he's like, Joe Hart out, this guy out, this is who I want to play. Didn't work for him. So my question here is, you're saying it's too early, but will it work at all? Do you think even with the players, even if City go and spend like 200-300 million, is teams just don't roll over in the Premier League? I mean, even a Crystal Palace or a Burnley will give you a fight. Do you think it'll work for Guardiola?
I'm all for managers sticking to their principles and their ideologies, but a good manager is one who will adapt to his players. A formation is only as good as your players, and you have to change your setup based on the strength of your squad. So I think throughout the season, we've seen Guardiola tinker with his lineup, tinker with his formation. So that does show that he can adapt. Granted, he doesn't have the best personnel available to him also. So it's been a combination of both, but I don't doubt that. I think Guardiola is one of the elite managers that we have around, and elite managers tend to adapt well, tend to understand the situation and change themselves based on that. So I think the league will have changed him from his defensive perspective. Now, as Shannon mentioned, when he was at Barcelona and Bayern Munich, both of those teams over there, they're competing with probably just one other team for the league. Most of the other games that they have, they're just running out winners. Even if they concede 2 or 3 goals, it doesn't matter. They've scored 6 or 7 at the other end. So it's going to be an interesting season to see how he adapts himself to the Premier League in terms of defending ability of his team and the defensive shape of his team. I don't think he'll change the fact that he likes to play out from the back. He will, when any signing he makes, will be based on the principle of keeping the ball, keeping possession, getting as many passes as possible, and all his ideologies. So I have no doubt in my mind that he will do better next season. And like you mentioned, if a manager doesn't adapt, it's going to be hard to succeed in the Premier League or any league for that matter.
All right, good words right there, Shannon. who do you think is underachieved more out of the two Manchester clubs this season?
It's going to be very relative. Uh, you would have Guardiola probably end up, 8 points ahead of Mourinho by the time the season ends. But what does he have to show for the season other than Champions League football for next? And even if Mourinho finishes sixth, 1 point above what Moyes managed 3 years ago, he has the League Cup to show for it, and there's the Europa League final coming up, which is definitely put all his eggs in that basket, right? So I'm saying it's relative because it would depend on what happens on May 24th.
Yeah.
If there's just sixth position and a League Cup to show for it, then it's going to be a failure on all accounts for Mourinho. But at this point, all Guardiola has is make sure that he doesn't slip up for the fourth spot. And there's Liverpool, there's City, the Arsenal creeping up, but it seems almost guaranteed that they'll be playing Champions League next season. So, I don't really know at this point, but I hope Mourinho wins the Europa League, and then I can call this season a success.
What do you think, Shannon, went wrong for United and Mourinho in the Premier League? Let's just focus on the Premier League here. Do you think it was the injuries? Do you think, I don't want to make the excuse that we had Europe. I mean, every good team has Europe, and they're able to play both competitions equally well. So I sound stupid to myself when I say, we prioritize Europa. What do you think went wrong that we're so far away from Chelsea? Forget Chelsea, even Spurs.
I think what went really wrong was our inability to finish teams off in the Premier League, or rather finish any chances we created. I mean, if you would imagine us being, around Spurs and around Chelsea, say around December, January, then you would have seen a lot more rotation from Mourinho because there was more margin for error. Every time United were in a position where they could, take advantage of other teams slipping, we did exactly the same. And it was not down to, playing pragmatic football. If people watched Mourinho's United the first 6 months of the season, they played brilliant football. They were strong in defense. They created chance after chance, but you didn't finish them. Like, there were open goals people didn't win. There were like one pass missing before scoring the goal. And what eventually happened, what I felt was Mourinho lost a little trust in his team. He trusted Ibrahimovic, he trusted Pogba, and eventually what happened was he overplayed them. I'm not saying Ibrahimovic had bad seasons by all accounts, but like, he played 90 minutes, 3 times a week at 36 years of age. If United were in a better position, he probably should have been rotated more, play 60 minutes, 70 minutes, save him for the next game, but that did not happen. And Pogba played every single game and eventually had injuries. And then we saw the defensive mindset creep in, where the last 2 months we were just, sitting back and defending. And I think that's what happened. Unfortunately, that's what happened.
Sharon, I'd like you to chime in here. I mean, as Shannon brought up a very good point, and it's hit me as well every time I watch United play, that it kind of seems that this season has just been Mourinho trying to see who can stand up for him, trying to see who he can trust going ahead. It seems he's clearly not thinking short term. I mean, I expect the likes of Smalling and Jones to be thrown out in the summer. So, what do you have to say about that?
I think honestly, Mourinho might have been surprised by the quality of the players, and I don't mean pleasantly, of the players at his disposal. So there's clearly a set of players that he trusts. Some have gained his trust in terms of Ander Herrera, who's really performed well this season. So he's been a mainstay. After Carrick has come in, that Carrick should have started the season according to me. So that was a good change that Mourinho brought in. So I was happy with that, and that's worked well. But There
Even
have been times.
even the likes of Matteo Darmian. I mean, he would have been the last person we thought would play, but he's been the most consistent left back who stood up for Mourinho.
Right, definitely, and that's it's not. It's sort of been helped by the fact that Shaw really hasn't impressed Mourinho in his first season, and it's the attitude of the players, as Mourinho has mentioned repeatedly, that he's not happy with in terms of their fighting spirit, or even if it comes to just recovering from injury and being available for the team. So there's definitely a set of players that he trusts, that he will play week in, week out as long as they're available for him. A lot of times, I think it has backfired in the sense that there have been situations where we're all aware of where Pogba or Ibrahimovic should have been benched, should have been given a game off, and maybe freshen it up, give someone else.
Even Eric Bailly, for that matter, I think he was overplayed.
Definitely, and honestly, for Eric Bailly coming into the defense that we have right now, it was always going to be a challenging season, because in a lot of games he's had to be one of the leading figures in the defense, and for a player for a 22 or 23-year-old coming from La Liga to be the leader in defense for United is not a simple task. Keeping that in mind, I think he's done well, but in the broader sense, I think it's been, Mourinho has a tendency to have a set circle of players that he trusts and plays. We've seen that at every club he goes to, and it tends to happen that he tends to isolate the players that are that he doesn't really trust or doesn't really believe in, and he's very clear about it. He doesn't hide his feelings about his players, so that becomes all the more obvious when it comes to Mourinho. So I do agree with you that some players have been overplayed, and it could have been freshened up in some cases.
Right, and Shannon, we're talking about players who've not stood out, and the name that strikes me first is Anthony Martial. I think he was given the chance, and we can easily say that, Mourinho can afford to sell the likes of Smalling and Jones, who've been all over the place as far as injuries are concerned and not been consistent. What do we do with Anthony Martial going into next season? I mean, he's probably cost us 50 plus million, and he's not close to the player we thought he'd be. And I mean, he's still 19 or 20 or whatever. Where do we go with Anthony Martial?
I really hope, for his sake, that Mourinho keeps him. I really, really do. We know that he's an amazingly talented player. I mean, he's just 21. After the rocking season that he had last time around in, a side that was struggling to create chances and scoring goals, he was our top scorer in his very first season in England. So we know he can do it. But we've seen that Mourinho expects a little bit more from his wide players.
Defensively, especially
defensively, right? Like, it's the same thing why he always, if you go back to his interviews from his first season back in England, and he had pretty much similar things to say about Hazard, but he had to play him because there's no one else to play left wing at Chelsea at that time. So I think if I was Martial, I would take heed, and he has the capability, he has the talent to do it. And I really hope, if I was Mourinho, to keep him, because if this season was long, imagine if you're getting into the Champions League, next season is going to be even worse. So Martial, we know Martial can perform, we know he can do it, and I think Mourinho, he has that little bit of tough love for the players he really likes. You can say the same about Luke Shaw as well. Yeah, and Sharon, you had something about that.
Yeah, I think with Martial, it's two-pronged. One is he clearly has to have a better attitude, as Mourinho has pointed out, and the other being his position in the team is not fixed, in the sense that I don't think Mourinho has decided that. I think that'll play a very important point as to where Mourinho decides Martial should be playing. If he's consistently able to perform on the left or right or striker, he has to decide. That would also sort of shape the signings that we make. So if he really believes in Martial, I think we would sort of make signings based on that. But if we end up getting a big name like Griezmann or
that's what I was going to ask.
James Rodriguez or something, then it's a big question mark on Martial's future as to which position he can really cement as his own, and that would affect his development as well.
That's exactly, Shannon. That's exactly what I was going to ask. So assuming we get for now, let's be in fantasy land and say we get James and Griezmann. So we have James, Griezmann, Mata, Mkhitaryan, Rashford, Martial, the front players. Uh, where I mean, what? How does he fit in? I mean, Conte came in, and it was clear that Hazard wasn't Hazard playing wide on the with the four in the midfield. So he changed it to a 3-5-2 and gave Hazard a free role where he didn't have to think about coming back. So he built around Hazard. Uh, how does Mourinho build around Martial? I mean, there's too many players to build around. There's too many big money buys. And potentially James and Griezmann coming in, they'll be big money buys as well. How do we build around so many players? How does it all come together as a puzzle?
You just going back a little bit, I answer your question, but the Spurs game at the White Hart Lane, that was a perfect example of where Martial should be. He was played through the center and he was isolated. And then when he moved to the left, he created the goal for Rooney. I think that's where his long-term position should be, and he should be used as a striker as and when needed. But coming back to what you asked, last season you would have probably thought that okay, this United team has to be built around Martial, but if you get players like James and Griezmann, then it reduces the load on someone like Martial to perform. I mean, don't forget last season was just his first full season or maybe second full season in professional football, and for a young player, he's bound to have ups and downs, and unfortunately, it happened during Mourinho's first season in charge of United. So when you have creative players like Griezmann and James coming in, I don't see it causing any detriment to players like Rashford and Martial. On the other hand, it will help them because now they don't have to have the burden of creating and scoring goals, at such a young age, and that's what's happened for the last 2 seasons. We got lucky with Rashford bursting on the scene and rescuing us time and again last season, second half of last season, and Martial was consistent throughout.
But I think that's what. Sorry, I think that. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think that's where the question of attitude comes in the sense that if Martial expects to be playing week in, week out, and he's putting pressure on himself to perform as well, there might be periods where he's out of the lineup, not playing consistently, and I think that's where his attitude would be the most.
He just seems very laid back to me, but
But then you had Berbatov. You've seen
that might just be the way he functions.
Have you seen Berbatov ever sweat on a football field? I haven't, but that's the way. Like Martial hasn't done anything different. If you look at how his body language is, he did the same exact things last season. The only difference was he was creating goals and he was scoring goals. Right?
Well, hoping he turns out like Berbatov and scores 20, 30 plus goals and wins us the title one season. But moving on, let's talk about how the buys of last season have turned out for both Manchester clubs. Sharan, I'll start with you, and let's start with City first. I mean, Guardiola came in with a very set mindset about how he wanted to play, as we spoke, and who he wanted. He got rid of Joe Hart the first day he was here. He set his mind on John Stones, as Shannon mentioned, to be his defensive leader. Going ahead. And he got the likes of Sané. Gabriel Jesus came in a bit late. I don't know if De Bruyne was this season or last season, but how do you think the buys have turned out for City?
Going ahead, definitely good. They're still dynamite going ahead, City. At the back, though, it's a completely different story because now we all know the entire saga with Joe Hart and Guardiola's problems with him. But he's gone and brought a keeper who's on the opposite end of the spectrum, who can play the ball at his feet but can't save City any games. So it's really been counterproductive for City over there. So in terms of goalkeeping changes, I think it's been a terrible season for them. In terms of other defensive positions, I'm glad United didn't get Otamendi because we've seen what a season he's had. And honestly, not good enough. John Stones, of course, I don't think Guardiola expected him to be playing like the leader from day one. Because again, I think he does understand that he's young and he's bound to make mistakes. And there's a little too much pressure put on him from the English media itself, and that's not helped John Stones
I
that much.
think he was hoping for Company to be fit more often and hoping he could play John Stones with Company, which would mature John Stones as a player, which clearly didn't happen. It went on, it turned out that he played with Otamendi, and Otamendi probably learned a thing or two from him.
Yeah, I mean that would have definitely been the ideal scenario wherein Company is there to sort of mentor John Stones throughout the season, because John Stones definitely has some great qualities. It's just he needs a lot more support and some amount of leadership around him. So in terms of defensive signings, extremely poor. He didn't really sign a midfield enforcer or of that kind. So that was, I think, I was a little bit surprised by that, because given the exclusion of Yaya Toure as well from the squad for like almost the good first half of the season. So that sort of surprised me. But I think Fernandinho really stepped up, and the sort of system that they played really helped them cement things in the middle. But the second they got past their midfield, it was all hell breaks loose for them at the back.
Yeah, I think their front five has been brilliant, and I think they're the most potent attacking force in the Premier League going into the next 2, 3, 4 seasons. I mean, Sane, Sterling, Aguero for now, Gabriel Jesus, De Bruyne, Silva. I mean, that's just dreamland.
That is really, that's an amazing attacking lineup that they have, and these are players that can perform week in week out as well, as they've shown. And even if one player has an off game, there are 4 others who are there to perform. So they really don't have too many issues going forward. But I think if Yaya Toure were to leave and some other changes in midfield for City, I think they would really need a stronger presence in midfield to really bring all of this together.
Right. Shannon, you want to talk about City real quick?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about these big name signings and we completely forget Ilkay Gundogan and Nolito. They were also signed at the beginning of the season.
Yep.
Gundogan, played his regular 5 matches a season, is back on the treatment table. And Nolito, I don't know even if he even gets picked in the 18-man squad these days. So, you guys picked like the front 5, 6 are amazing, but the players that Guardiola himself signed they're not getting any game time either due to injury or just not being picked. But
I almost forgot about Gundogan. It just hit me that he's a City player. But you spoke about Nolito. I mean, I don't blame Guardiola I don't blame Nolito. I mean, Guardiola is the one who took him out of the team when after a month or two, and Nolito was playing on the left in the front 3, and he was doing real well. So I don't know why he's just been banished.
Probably it was, but one thing that it shows is, when you asked me the question about this big name signings coming up in United, it's not a bad thing. Like our neighbors across the city have front 6 that would fit into any big team in the world. So why shouldn't United be going out for the likes of Griezmann and James? But I'm digressing here. But as Sharan hit the nail on the head, they don't have a midfield enforcer. Yaya Toure is 34 now. He doesn't have the legs to carry a team throughout the season anymore. So that's one position that United and City need strengthening. But I think if Gundogan was fit, he would be probably playing in there, trying to stitch the defense and the attack.
I think we spoke about United. I think even for City, it's been a case of Guardiola trying to find out who he can trust going ahead. I mean, he kind of gave up on the title very early. He's been happy with just settling. He's settled for the top 4 since quite a while, and I think Guardiola is one of those managers who can't wait for the season to end and going into next season to get started with his new set of players. And he's played his team all over. He's played Fernandinho at right back. He's played a 3-5-2. He's tried both his left backs, Kolarov and Clichy. He's played Fernando at right back sometimes. He's played Zabaleta in the midfield. So I mean, he's been all over trying to see what his best team is. Shannon, let's come to United here. How do you think the likes of Bailly, Mkhitaryan, Ibrahimovic, and I forgot the 4th one, Pogba. How do you think? I don't know how I forgot him. How do you think our 4 buys have summer buys have performed this year?
Okay, so we will start with Pogba. He, a lot of people, we spoke on this pod, a lot of people said they expected more from him, but I think he's had an amazing season, to be honest. It's not his fault that, the chances, he has created the most chances in the league. He's dominated most of the games he's played in, even the ones against Chelsea. I think Chelsea was a perfect game where Pogba showed what he can do against the big teams. And if the team is centered around him and the team is built for it, I think he's had a fantastic season. Obviously, he probably could have scored more goals. Had those 8-9 shots off the post. But I think he's had a really good season. Ibrahimovic, where would we be without his 26, 28 goals? But I think both of them were, as I said, super overworked. They should have been probably rotated more to be more effective over the long run. And I think the pick of the signings for me has been Eric Bailly. I mean, no one knew who Eric Bailly was except for people who probably watched Villarreal or La Liga. And he's just come in. He hasn't had a terrible game, so to say. And he looks like a steal compared to 50 million spent on John Stones, 42 million spent on Otamendi and Mangala. So I think
Sako.
Yeah. So I think for me he's been the pick of Mourinho signings, and Mkhitaryan, he started off slow, but I think he knows what his position in the team is, what his role in the team is. So I can't pick one player that has disappointed me from the 4 Mourinho signed, and just because of Eric Bailly, I think I can trust Mourinho's defensive signings, whoever it might be.
Right. So let's talk about potential transfers that might happen this summer. We spoke about how it's strange to see, and it's been a while that the Manchester clubs haven't posed a title threat at all. In one season, it's been the lowest positions for both the managers, in quite a while. Who do you think, Sharan, Mourinho will look to buy in the summer now that he's seen where he needs to improve?
Knowing Mourinho, I think his priority is going to be defense. He's going to start with the centre back positions because if this season's taught him anything, it's that he can't really trust the centre backs to stay fit throughout the season. That's problem number one. Consistency is another issue entirely, and we probably need a separate podcast to discuss Smalling and Jones. But I think Mourinho's priority, I hope his priority this season is to get at least one established centre back. By established, I mean someone who can lead the players that we have currently.
Who do you think he can get? Someone like a Varane, maybe?
Again, Varane's a good defender, but he isn't an established defender in the sense that I don't look at Varane being able to lead by Jones, Smalling, Darmian, whoever is playing along with him. Varane is also someone who would need a good established figure next to him. Now, the question being which defender we would get, unfortunately, I don't see many good defenders available in the market. It's impossible.
Yeah, and there's big competition as well, even with the few defenders that are available. And one of the names that come to my mind is Van Dijk from Southampton. I'm a big fan of him, and he's proven himself for many years in the Premier League.
Yeah, if I had to pick someone from the league, if I had to pick a couple of players from the league, I would look at Van Dijk, and I didn't think I'd be saying this, but Alderweireld as well, because he's really surprised me in terms of his in the way that he's adapted to the centre back position, because he wasn't a centre back to begin with. I don't know if he's played there as a youth player, but he didn't come in as a centre back. He even plays as full back for Belgium on a lot of occasions. So Alderweireld and Van Dijk are two players that really look as good leader figures coming from the Premier League.
I mean, the question there would be: would Daniel Levy sell Alderweireld, considering Spurs would be title contenders next season as well? So, two more names I'd throw at you would be Eric Dyer and Michael Keane. Do you think they would be they would fit in well. I mean, Eric Dyer, I know, is a question mark because he's more of a CDM according to me, not an established out and out centre back. But what about Michael Keane? He's not an established centre back, but now is the time for United to get him for good money than pay 60, 70 million in a couple of years.
Getting Michael Keane back would definitely be really romantic in the sense that he's a Manchester lad, and getting him back would be amazing. But I would say that getting Michael Keane would make sense if we're going to be selling Smalling or Jones as a replacement for one of them, because he still has some years of development left. To play at an elite club is very different from playing for Burnley, and the expectations are way higher. The kind of football you have to play is way higher, and he would really have to step up. So again, Michael Keane is a good option, is someone we should definitely be looking at. But along with him, I would look at Mourinho to be signing a good established centre back. Again, I do not have any suggestions for centre back, unfortunately, because if I had to suggest, I'd say Bonucci or Chiellini, but then have a leaving Juventus, and I can't really see anyone beyond them. But yeah, that's my opinion. I think Mourinho is really going to have a tough time finding a good centre back, but I think that's going to be his priority.
Shannon, you want to talk about the other positions that Mourinho might look to fill in?
We've spoken at length about how the spine of the team isn't really strong at the moment. We have to. You think about great United sides. You had Carrick, Scholes, Hargreaves. You had before that Keane, Scholes, Beckham, Giggs. The spine of the team was like there, where you could build the team around, and that's what's missing at United right now. I mean, we could go on for which players we need to sign, and of course we need to sign someone who can put the ball in the net, for Pete's sake. Someone who doesn't miss the goal from 4 yards. So I think the main issue this year essentially was not the defending; it was the scoring, not even the attacking, just the scoring. So I think someone like Griezmann, like Belotti, I really think United will get someone like a Belotti or a Lukaku. I don't know why, I just have a feeling, because you look historically at Mourinho's teams, they've always had this bull-like centre forward, to play off of, and that's why Mourinho got Ibrahimovic in the team for. Unfortunately, due to his injury, I don't think he's going to be here next season. But I really think we'll get someone like a Belotti, and I think that would really, spearhead the team, provide like a focal point to the team.
I really hope we get Lukaku, and I have that slight hope in me because I think he shares the same agent as the other guys, Mkhitaryan, Zlatan, Pogba, Mino Raiola. So, I mean, United could work their magic with Mino Raiola, but yeah, we do need an out and out goal scorer, and who better than Lukaku? Sharan, who do you think? I mean, Shannon spoke about having a spine, especially in the midfield. We do have Pogba and Herrera, who will be the two main midfielders. Going ahead 5, 6, 7 years, who do you think would fill the third center midfield role now that Carrick is possibly retiring or moving on or filling, maybe staying in a part-time role? It's almost impossible to replace Carrick, by the way, but.
Yeah, we're definitely not going to get a player as good as Carrick or someone who's going to fit in seamlessly. But I think that's going to lead to a slight shift in the kind of formation Mourinho wants to play as well. I hope he's sort of finalized or decided on the kind of shape he wants to keep for next season, because this season it's been sort of adapting to the teams that we're playing against. In terms of the spine, before I get to which midfielder we should probably be getting, when it comes to the spine, the only thing that I'm scared of is that we have the almighty task of replacing De Gea if he does end up leaving. So that's going to be a huge void for Mourinho, because if Lloris was the name that was being thrown around all these years, I don't think he's going to leave Spurs anytime soon with the way they're playing. And Pochettino really has a squad altogether. But so yeah, replacing De Gea is going to be a huge task for Mourinho if he does end up leaving. In terms of midfield, Herrera has really, really stepped up and impressed everyone, and Mourinho more importantly. So that's looked good. Pogba, I would say he's had a good season. You'd expect a lot more from him next season in terms of creativity in terms of him controlling games more, and not disappearing in the middle and then coming back suddenly, springing up suddenly and whatnot. But in terms of consistency, I'd expect more from Pogba. Uh, if Carrick were to play a bit part role next season, we would need someone who is a dedicated holding midfielder to replace him. Because Herrera is more of a box-to-box player. He is disciplined. He does have the discipline in him to follow orders. But Pogba is someone who can drift. Pogba is
Maybe
someone.
maybe someone like a Strootman.
Um, Funnily enough, that name did come to my mind as well. But Strootman, it's like signing Gundogan for City. Like, we forgot about him.
Yeah.
Probably in a year this podcast, suddenly someone would mention Strootman and we'll be like, oh wow, okay, Strootman does exist. So that's going to be another case like that. But honestly, I really no names come to mind immediately. But
So, I mean, a lot of discussions have sprung up from the German media where they're saying Bayern would be willing to let Renato Sanchez go. He's young, and you know, he was a potential United target at one time. But do you think either of the two, Renato Sanchez or Vidal, would make sense? I know we missed out on Vidal a season or two ago, but I don't blame United considering he had almost a career-ending knee surgery. So no one expected Vidal to turn out so good after that injury.
Renato Sanchez, of course, he's an excellent player, upcoming player. I don't know why the season didn't pan out well for him at Bayern, but that's not the kind of player I would go for. Again, similar to centre back, we would need someone with experience in the centre of midfield. So someone who can sort of help defense as well, who's a little more disciplined. And again, Vidal also is not the first player that comes to my mind because he is a lot similar to Herrera if you think about it, in terms of their aggressiveness and in terms of their box-to-box ability and their sort of doggedness to.
If only we could make clones of N'Golo Kante and supply them to every team.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If I had to pick one player, I'd say just get Kante. But yeah, honestly, the problem is with midfielders, I can't think of good midfielders that other clubs would be willing to let go of.
Yeah,
that's probably the biggest issue.
The ideal name that the ideal fit, according to me, would be a Toni Kroos, but that's never going to happen. Madrid are not going to sell. Finishing up on United, Shannon, we've spoken at length, in our chats about who De Gea's replacement could be, and I've been saying that Romero is an able replacement, at least for a year or two. When after that we can probably shop around more, considering a lot of teams will be out in the market for goalkeepers, including City, Liverpool. Assuming De Gea happens, I mean, it's every summer is just De Gea leaving to Madrid, but it never happens. Assuming he does leave, who do you think can replace him?
It's the same about talk about other positions. It's who is available and who's good enough. I mean, if you wanted to make a like-for-like replacement for David De Gea, then the player who's the most complete right now is Jan Oblak from Atletico Madrid. But I do not see Atletico leaving, letting United have two of their star players in the same transfer window. And for that reason alone, just because there's so much spending required, there's so much spending required in other parts of the team to strengthen. I think Mourinho would be tempted to give Romero a year. I mean, he's bigged Romero recently in press conferences. If you heard him say that, this guy is an Argentinian international, and he's really good keeper. And he's also bigged up Joel Pereira, who's the reserves goalkeeper right now, and called him the potential greatest
Portuguese goalkeeper.
Yeah, of the next generation.
But and he is making a big statement by saying Romero is going to play in the Europa League final. I mean, if I was De Gea, I would be upset.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, if De Gea does leave, I have a sneaky feeling that Romero is going to be number one with Sam Johnston or Joel Pereira as a number two and reserve. It's going to be very, very bad to go from De Gea to Romero. No disrespect to him, but I think that's how we'll go. Just because of the spending that we need in the other parts of the team. That's what it's come down to.
it's fair to say that you're not going to get a De Gea if he leaves, but it's fair to note that we did suffer during his first couple of seasons. He wasn't the player he is. So it'll be a change, but hopefully it's a change for the good. I'll throw two more names at you guys. How about Donnarumma from AC Milan or Kasper Schmeichel from Leicester? Sharon?
For me, a club like United, an elite club, needs an elite goalkeeper. We cannot go forward with Romero or Romero. For me, is not good enough. He came from the bench at Sampdoria. He might be an Argentine international, but looking at Argentina results, that tells you everything you want to know. Otamendi starts in defense for them, so that's really not. That really isn't the yardstick we should be measuring them from. But like the names you mentioned are interesting. Donnarumma played in the Italian league, so there you know that there is a good emphasis on defense and a good sort of principles in place, I guess. And he's shown good consistency at a young age. What was the other name you mentioned? I'm sorry.
Kasper Schmeichel from Leicester.
Kasper Schmeichel again. I'm sure no one would be happier than his dad if he joined here, if he were to join United.
Yeah, I mean he's kind of in the same mold as De Gea, like a good showman, a good shot stopper. I think he'd be a good fit.
He is one name that I would be willing to accept.
Yeah.
In the sense that he has shown good signs in both of Leicester's seasons. He's been pretty consistent. And definitely with the history associated with his family, I think he'd be a good option, I think.
And there's no reason for Leicester to not sell any of their players now if money is thrown at them. They won't be title contenders now. So, I mean, if they'd get like 40 million for Schmeichel, Vardy, Mahrez, I think they'd happily accept money.
Oh, definitely. I think Schmeichel's at a good age as well in terms of
right. He's probably 30, so good age for a goalkeeper to come in.
He actually was voted Player of the Season by the fans for this year.
Very nice. Let's move on to City. We've spoken at length about United, and I'm sure we're only going to talk about the City defense. Shannon, what players would Guardiola be targeting? What positions would Guardiola be looking to fill in going into next season? I mean, it's going to be goalkeeper, centre back, left back, right back for sure. But what kind of personnel can he bring in?
Well, I think we've just like United. You've seen so many reports about players being linked, but I think he's going to go all out for a goalkeeper. Along with United, I think City definitely need a goalkeeper who can actually make saves.
Sorry to stop. Sorry to stop you there. So, I get the points you both are trying to make, but it's kind of funny that big names sell. I mean, Caballero has proven his worth consistently now. Same for Romero. Why do you think players like those, names like Caballero and Romero, are not good enough to be permanent?
Do you know who United's backup keeper was when Schmeichel was in goal? Can you give me that answer? Yeah, exactly. That's the same thing. I mean, when you have De Gea in goal, you have a decent keeper as your backup, but he's not going to be your number one. Do you remember who David Seaman's backup was? No. It's the same exact reason. It's not about big names, it's about quality. I mean, De Gea rescued us time and time again when Van Gaal was in charge, when Moyes was in charge. He probably has reflexes of a cat. And it's not about big names, it's about, those quality saves that, they save you 3, 5, 8 points a season that make the final difference.
Right. So goalkeeper is certainly one position that both, if De Gea leaves, both Manchester clubs would. Yeah, going back to City, how about their defense?
I think they will sign a pair of fullbacks for sure. I think Guardiola came out, if I'm not mistaken, and said that Zabaleta will not be signing an extension. So all they have is Sanya at right back and Clichy and Kolarov at left back, and both are defensively astounding. Yeah, not in a good way. So I think there is still scope for their center defense to improve with the likes of John Stones maturing a little bit more, and Kompany staying fit, Otamendi being a backup. But it's the fullbacks that they need players at. And I don't know if you would believe the media. They would probably sign half of Monaco tomorrow. So
Yeah. They have the money to do that.
they certainly, and they're going to spend it this summer for sure. But
Yeah.
I think they need a left back, and a right back has at least a right back has a higher priority though, for sure.
Hmm. Fair enough. Fair enough. Uh, Sharan, do you think did City need to fill in any other positions? We spoke about a midfield enforcer. What kind of player do you think fits that profile for City?
For me, like Shannon mentioned, money is not a problem for either of the Manchester clubs, first and foremost. So they definitely have the money to splash. Uh, right back, of course, like with a player like Zabaleta leaving, they definitely need to spend on a right back and get a mainstay. With Yaya Toure going, they need a player of a similar mold for sure to come in. Who that would be again goes back to our conundrum with finding a midfielder for United. One name that I thought of belatedly was Rakitic, someone like Rakitic, who would be an ideal fit for either of the clubs, but we know very clearly that he's never going to
Right.
leave Barcelona. But a player of that sort.
One name that we've not mentioned today, Bakayoko. Do you think he'll be hot property? There'll be competition to sign him with Chelsea, United, City all trying to sign him?
I'm sure if I'm Bakayoko, I'd probably choose Chelsea based on the experience they have in midfield and the support he would have from them to develop. Of course, but United and City have the money to throw at players right now. So there is a temptation for regular football and higher perks, I guess, that might sway a young player like him.
Yeah, going back to just City's defense. I mean, one player that's been touted to join them is Kyle Walker this summer. He's been left out of Spurs squad. It seems that his head has been turned, and I mean, who wouldn't want to play under Pep Guardiola if you had the chance, right?
Who wouldn't want to earn money is the question.
That too. But I think we'll see Kyle Walker and or Danny Rose join Tottenham, and it makes perfect sense. But Tottenham are very stingy sellers. Daniel Levy is a massive pain in the butt, so they would get truckloads of money for Kyle Walker and Danny Rose, and they would solve City's conundrum with their fullbacks.
Right. I want to finish up on City here. And Sharon, I want to bring you in. So like we mentioned initially, Guardiola is very set with, the kind of players he wants to play. And Gabriel Jesus is one of them. He's played him ahead of Aguero when he's fit. And we all know that Aguero is not going to accept the fact that he's going to sit on the bench or be a backup striker. I have a feeling that Aguero is going to leave in the summer. And probably not to a fellow Premier League team. Do you think they'll kind of look for a backup striker as well, or do you think the likes of Iheanacho could fill that role? I mean, say Gabriel Jesus gets injured today, I don't think Iheanacho is good enough to be the sole striker to carry City forward.
I can't imagine City or Guardiola going forward with Iheanacho and Gabriel Jesus as their top two strikers. If Aguero were to leave, that I think would be a major blow for City, in the sense that he's gotten them the most important goals in their last, I don't know, ever since he's been at the club. So it's going to be a huge task replacing someone like Aguero. But if he were to leave, that would definitely be a position that they would be looking at. And currently, someone like Alexis Sanchez also might be a player that interests them. He has mentioned that he wants to stay in London, so I don't know how that will pan out. But given his troubles at Arsenal right now, a player of his mold would be someone that fits City and Guardiola's mentality. And he's played under Guardiola before as well, if I'm not wrong. So that would be a player that I think interests Guardiola for sure, because he likes his hardworking. He likes his front men to be hardworking and, of course, get the goals when they need them. So
right.
I think that's an interesting option for them.
Right. Good talk there. Shannon, any quick word on how the Manchester clubs have done? Let's talk about post Sir Alex era and the last 2-3 years and the near future. Where do you think the Manchester clubs stand as far as the youth players are concerned, as far as their academies are concerned?
Uh, United used to be way ahead of City till about till the Arab takeover, but uh, the the sheikhs, they have invested like £1 trillion in Manchester City's training facilities, and they've built the foundation, not the foundation, the youth academy from scratch, you could say. But a team like City, have you seen any youth players been given chance? It's the same as Chelsea, where we haven't seen any. I mean, they win, they get deep into the FA Youth Cups. They always keep challenging in the under 21 leagues, but none of them are given any chance to perform at the senior level. So I don't know. There used to be like really good players. There's still really good players in the youth academies, but unlike United, where if you're good enough, doesn't matter what your age is, you get a chance. But you don't see it at City, unfortunately.
Right, Sharon, a quick word on United and the likes of Tuanzebe and Scott McTominay. I mean, Rashford and Lingard have kind of established themselves as first teamers. What do you think the future holds for the United Academy?
I think in terms of youth players, it's important to put it into context. For a club like United that has historically promoted players from the academy and done well to establish youth players in the first team, I think Mourinho has understood that part of the club, and he's really espoused that and tried to promote it as best he can. And it looks promising as well. In terms of City, they have never had that culture of promoting youth players. I do not begrudge them their money and all the millions that they have. United have spent enough as well in the market, so that is fine. But I think it's good to see the amount of money that City has spent in their academy. A lot of ex-United players are sending their kids to the City academy over United's academy, which is, I think, a very important marker, which tells you all you need to know about the quality of the academies currently.
But then the question would be, are they sending them there so that they have a first team chance, or are they just sending them there because they have the best facilities in the world?
I think it's the latter. They just
yeah,
you would
yeah.
send, if you're a parent, you would send them to a school that has the best opportunity
Exactly.
to let them grow, right? Like even if
Yeah.
it was a rival school.
Yeah.
Right?
I would agree. I would agree with Shannon over there. I think City have really upped the standard in terms of facility and training and whatnot. I really can't say anything more from the outside, but from all the indicators that we're seeing, it looks like their academy is on the up currently. And it might be a while before we see any young players really come up and play for the main City team. But that's also got to do with the fact that the current footballing world is not a patient one. There isn't enough time for a young player to flourish as well. So, and historically, City have not really been a club that promotes youth. So all of that is going to take some changing. But encouraging signs for City, and is honestly, I'm glad to see that Mourinho has espoused the United culture as well, and not really shunned the youth academy. So it's good to see that he has some focus on the academy too.
Right, and I think somewhere I blame the owners as well. I mean, Abramovich and the Arab guys at City. It's because of their craving for immediate success. I think that's where the clubs in general suffer in not being able to promote youth players or being able to give them time. But yeah, we've spoken at length. We've had good discussions about both the Manchester clubs in the Premier League, but the season's still not over for United. We still have we're still carrying the English ship forward in Europe. Shannon, any word on the upcoming Europa League tie with Ajax? Before I ask that, in fact, let me ask you, what do you think about Mourinho prioritizing that game and Europa League over the Premier League, where he's just given up, which is very unlike Mourinho and United?
I mean, it is unlike Mourinho and United, but if you listen to his press conferences, he's probably been the most honest he's ever been. I mean, he told the reporter straight that I have 15 senior players in my squad, and how do you expect me to play 10 games in a month with 15 players, right? And it's I mean, I can understand his conundrum. I can understand why he's prioritizing the Europa League. If you have, say, at the beginning of the month, you had 3 tough games to get to the Champions League, or you have 6 tough games to get to the Champions League, what would you choose? And he's taken the sort of the path of least resistance, where he had to play Celta Vigo and potentially Lyon or Ajax, but turned out Ajax.
But my problem with that is, I mean, every good manager does that. Sir Alex did that. But what I didn't like about that was Mourinho could have quietly done that, but Mourinho chose to come out before the game and say that this game doesn't matter. I mean, the players in their mind know that the manager said that the Arsenal game is not important. So it just brings their, you know, it just brings them down a level as far as preparation is concerned going into the game, I think.
Yeah, but does it matter what? I mean, it does matter to an extent what the manager says in the press conferences. But how many times have you heard Fergie say something and do exactly opposite during the game, right? I mean, what happens behind the scenes, what happens during training, it's only between the players and the coaches and the manager. But if I was Mourinho, it is a little sly of me to say, but coming out saying that that the game does not matter kind of gives me an excuse as to, if I win, then I credit the players for working hard. If I lose, I say, oh, I told you so that I'm going to lose. But it's now all on Mourinho. He's put all his eggs in one small basket. Luckily, the basket got to the final. It's about performing on the 24th now. And I hope it doesn't bite him in the butt. That's all I
Right. And I mean, I don't blame Mourinho completely. We've played all decently to very decent teams to very good teams in those games. I mean, Smalling, Jones, these are not bad players. I mean, they're supposed to perform at the highest level. Today, I mean, I was listening to Gary Cahill today, and in my mind, I put Gary Cahill and Smalling in the same mold as to when they came in and how they came into their big clubs, and how Gary Cahill has embraced the big stage and where Smalling is. So it's kind of the players letting Mourinho down as well to an extent. Sharon, how do you think Mourinho is going to approach the Europa League final? I mean, he's a master at these, at the big stage and in the big games. But Ajax did have a wonderful first leg in the Champions League, and they were able to somehow able to stop Lyon in the second leg. How do you think the game's going to pan out? And do you think the United supporters are going to forget about what happened in the Premier League if we win the Europa League?
For sure. For your last question, I think United supporters, us included, would be happy as long as we make it to the Champions League. For a while, it's been clear that we do need to focus a lot more on the Europa League, given our performances at home in the league. Most importantly, at Old Trafford, we've just not performed as well as we would have hoped to. I mean, performances are there, but we didn't finish the games off. But against Ajax, I think we will be facing a youthful, energetic squad, a squad that is largely homegrown and full of passionate players. And but where we have an advantage, I think, is with Mourinho and his experience in Europe. So that would really make a huge difference in the final, and it's really going to be one of the biggest games of the season for us, because I know we've already got one trophy in the bag this season, but we need to be playing in Europe soon. So by soon I mean next season, and I think it's going to be really important for us to win the Europa League. I don't disagree with Mourinho prioritizing the Europa League at all. What he said before the Spurs game, I think, was just to take the pressure off his players more than anything else, because I think I'm sure they all wanted to go out and win. Granted, like you said, we don't. Even though it was a first choice 11 almost in most terms, but the performances weren't there. Individual performances weren't there. But coming back to the final, I think it's a huge game for us. We really need all our players to bring their A game, and I trust Mourinho to have a good plan for the final, and he's proved himself in Europe before. So I think his experience would really come into play.
We're surely going to miss Bailly, so one of Smalling or Jones would have to step up. Bailly, I think, is going to be a great miss. Finishing up on today's podcast, Shannon, do you think if we win the Europa League, 2.5 trophies in Mourinho's first season, including the Community Shield here. Do you think 2.5 trophies would be a success?
Well,
Do you think we're in good hands?
why not? At the beginning of the season, United were in 4 competitions plus the Community Shield, and if you finish the season with winning 3 of them, I would consider that as a success. I mean, what would be the difference between United and Spurs? At the end of the season, say United win the Europa League, they'll be in the Champions League with the League Cup. Spurs would just be in the Champions League. What do they have to show for this season, right? So, if you see a relative comparison, then again, it's all hinged on the Europa League final. And if United win it, I would call it a success. This season has been a write-off, but you start fresh. You can make signings that you want, and you are back into the big boys game in the Champions League. So I'd be calling that a success for sure.
All right, I'm going to finish up with our special guest Sharan here. Sharan, do you think going ahead in the near future, individually, the Manchester clubs are going to be a potent force? And did the other clubs just get lucky this year with both the Manchester clubs slacking off a bit?
I definitely don't think the other clubs got lucky. I think Tottenham have been on the up for a couple of seasons now. Pochettino, I think, is an excellent manager, and he's done a brilliant job with them. And as he continues to do so, and their club is really on the up. Conte has been brilliant, so I won't take any credit away from the clubs that have finished on top of us. Maybe Liverpool, but again, I think we've both Manchester clubs, I think, have in the league have not lived up to expectations, and I do foresee that changing next year, especially in terms of the managers, because for them to take a 6th place and a third or 4th place finish in their careers would be particularly hard. Not to mention for the clubs, but for them, they would want to bounce back as soon as possible, and they more than anyone else have a point to prove. For United, it's important we get back into the Champions League. I credit Mourinho for steadying the ship a little bit after 3 seasons that we had, which have been largely disappointing and controversial.
To put it mildly.
Yeah, to put it very mildly. But I definitely credit Mourinho for steadying the ship in terms of understanding the culture of the club and coming in and really stabilizing it in terms of performances and signings, more importantly. So I do see both Manchester clubs being in the title run-in from next year. And with the addition of Europe and signings, I think both clubs will be challenging next year. It'll be interesting in the sense that Chelsea, Tottenham, United, City, I expect these 4 clubs to be the top 4 next year.
All right, great discussion there. Just your last point threw an additional question at me. Do you think we'll suffer in Europe because of that level of competition in the Premier League, with 6-7 teams competing so badly for the top 4 of the title?
I mean, that's been the case for a while, wherein English teams haven't been able to go very far in Europe. But that's something I'm looking at Mourinho and Guardiola, elite managers that we have in the Premier League, to change. I'm expecting Conte, Mourinho, Guardiola. These are managers who've done it year in, year out in the Champions League and have had they've had slightly easier domestic seasons than they're probably used to. So it would be challenging, but if I had to trust any managers, it'd be these guys to be able to balance it out in both the leagues. So I think it'll be interesting to see how we perform next year.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Sharan, for taking the time out and joining us and subbing in for Anwind. It's always good. It's always good to listen to your opinions. So yeah, I mean, thanks everyone for listening to us. We thought it'd be a great idea at this stage of the season to do a Manchester special. If you do have additional thoughts on what topics we should talk about, don't forget to comment and like and subscribe. We'll be back soon later this week with the Premier League episode as well. So thanks for now and goodbye.
Thanks for